fascinating places, and I speak of one who has become endlessly fascinated by London for the past 7 years. They are cosmopolitan crossroads, holding out the promise of excitement, choice, employment, entertainment, learning, relationship. But the reality is often very different from that. Cities can act as a magnet for crime. The close proximity of different cultures can produce racial tension. The gap between rich and poor can become magnified. The environment exhausted. And as somebody once said very tellingly, one definition of city life is simply millions of people being lonely together. Cities are full of promise, but in my experience and having lived in a number of cities in the United Kingdom, they rarely deliver what they promise. And although Christianity in this country evolved, broadly speaking, within a rural framework, leaving as its legacy, even today, a church which struggles to find a place in city life, nonetheless, Scripture's witness to God's sweep of salvation throughout history is stark in its simplicity. The Bible begins in a garden and ends in a city. The bookends of the Bible are two very different pictures of paradise. One a garden, the other a city. And that picture of paradise shifts from country to city, from Garden of Eden to the New Jerusalem. Heaven, in biblical terms, is urban. And so we seek the city which is to come. Our daily prayer remains, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. The pattern of God's heavenly city is to be our guide and inspiration for redeeming the life of our earthly cities and our earthly existence. And this is a high calling if we are to take the life of the church seriously. It will involve a continuing commitment to engage with the real issues of urban existence: employment, justice, education, healthcare, law enforcement, environment, and the rest from a Christian perspective. It will involve speaking up for, and in my terms, more importantly, giving voice to those who have no voice in the political process. It will involve frontier care for the casualties of the system, yes, but it will also involve challenging decisions which flout core Christian values. It will involve a humble willingness to listen and learn from others, an ability to absorb the complexities of the problems facing large cities around the United Kingdom. And one of the key disciplines for us, if we're to do this well, will be that of contemplation, that ability to see what others miss. Indeed, contemplation is at the heart of what I believe the church might be called to contribute to social justice. The ancient world believed that the word temple, long before it referred to an earthly building, designated a place in the sky, a divine arrangement of the stars, a dwelling place for the gods. And in its youngest and purest form, contemplation was about building on earth a sort of temple, which could be a building, but also could be your personality, or a moral structure, or indeed a city, which corresponded with the temple in the sky. Contemplation meant literally bringing together the two temples, the one in the sky with the one on earth. That is to say, all of human life is to be brought into conformity with the harmony of heaven. Once we understand that, we begin to see that contemplation is a very practical, I would say a very political discipline. It sounds all spiritual, but it connects fundamentally with practical, physical, and political realities in life. The writer to the Hebrews put it like this: "Here we have no lasting city, We seek the city which is to come. The essence of our spirituality, of our prayer, is to be a contemplation of the city which is to come, a growing conformity between the city on earth and the heavenly city. And that will mean that prayer and worship gets linked inextricably with political activity. Our activism emerges from contemplation, from prayer, from worship, from drawing together God's vision for the world as it might be with our experience of the world as it is. Social justice is not, therefore, just a bolt-on, a last-ditch attempt to make the Christian faith seem relevant to a world intent on looking in the opposite direction. It is at the heart of what makes us distinctive, which is to be a community of prayer and worship. And lest we forget, liturgy, liturgia, is a Greek composite word meaning originally a public duty, an act of service undertaken by a citizen. The work of the people reminds us, if ever we needed it reminding, that what we do in church is intimately connected to what we do as a church. To go back to one of those 10 classic principles of Roman Catholic social teaching, the theological basis for a commitment to social justice is predicated on that classic argument of a divine bias to the poor, expressed vibrantly in passages such as Mary's Magnificat and Jesus' Nazareth Manifesto. He has put down the mighty from their seat and has exalted the humble and meek. He has filled the hungry with good things. The rich he has sent empty away. Should be another one coming up in a sec. Here we go. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. The acceptable year of the Lord is an unmistakable reference to the year of Jubilee, that extraordinary and probably ultimately untested idea from the Old Testament, where debts are released and slavery is redeemed on a messianic scale. This Nazareth Manifesto is the political essence of what Christianity is about. Not something safe to hold within the walls of a church building, but something daring, risky, adventurous, breathtaking, to take out into the world beyond our doors. Working for social justice is not an add-on to Christianity, something for the left-wing radicals to get their teeth into. It is at the heart of everything we are meant to be doing in our life together as a church. You'll no doubt be aware of the famous comment by theologian and pastor Helmut Thielicke, who once said that our checkbooks have more to do with heaven and hell than our hymn books. He might equally have said prayer books, I suppose. Actually, the point is that checkbooks and hymn books and prayer books, they're all part of the same library. Jesus Christ summed up the heart of Christianity with that famous one-liner: love God and love your neighbour. At the heart of Christian social action is something profoundly spiritual. Churches are not just another social agency. They are motivated and energized by living faith. And for years, those of you who have been involved like me in this area of work, for years this has been an embarrassment to our secular partners. They have recognized increasingly over the past 10, 15 years, I think, come to recognize the contribution of the church, but they have been extraordinarily reluctant to connect that contribution to the religious dimension that we offer. But this won't do. church actually